Hi, my friends. I'm so glad you're back. I hope that means that you are interested in talking about how to print a hard copy of your book because I am a personal fan of hard copies. And I still think that there is value in our current world, our current online world, to printing your book in paper. It's not required. You can still publish an amazing book in electronic form and be 100% proud of yourself and feel accomplished in all of that. But if you do want to print hard copy, let's talk about it. If you are watching this video, you also are most likely self-publishing. If you are using a traditional publisher, you don't have to worry about this as much because they take care of it. Typically, there's no other options. Sometimes they give you the rights to print some personal stuff somewhere else, but I don't typically hear about that happening. So traditional publishing, you don't worry about this. But if you are self-publishing, there are a few different ways this can go. Number one, you decide to work with an independent publisher that's also a printer, a publishing house that prints, but it's an independent setup, so you get to determine, all of the nitty-gritty that you want in order to get everything done. This information I'm sharing in this video, some of it will still apply to that situation. However, if you are 100% in the self-publishing world and you're not working with a hybrid or independent publisher in a way that they are going to be the ones printing your book, then you have to figure out where to get this printed. What they do is they call this print on demand, POD, pod. So you may hear industry experts, you may hear people talking about pod services. There are certain elements that go into which pod you choose, which pod service you choose, such as cost, distribution fees, and, quality, right? So let's talk about that. I think probably there are a few major big name print-on-demand services that you should be aware of that I want you to look into. And always take it back to your personal goals. Do you only want a handful printed for family? Is it just a couple that you want printed for your own personal use? Or are you trying to get this in bookstores and all of that? So all of those factors will go into which service is right for you. Another thing that will go into this decision is how long is your book, how many pages, that type of thing. How complex is your book to print? Do you want glossy photos and all of that? So understand where your book is at, what your goals are, and then lean into those factors so you can make the right decision. But let's talk about the big name players so you understand what's out there for you. Number one, I'm just going to jump out there with Amazon. They are called KDP. Kindle Direct Publishing. Kindle Direct Publishing, or KDP, is Amazon's print-on-demand option, okay? You can do their ebook and have your book on their Kindle, and then you can do KDP. They make it super easy. I'm not going to lie to you. This is probably one of the easiest options, okay? But one of the biggest advantages of using Amazon is that you get to utilize their distribution connections as well. So they may also have maybe more friendlier rates since they're such a big conglomerate, maybe not, but you have to determine what your goal is. And they also have options to help you do things like format your book. They have a previewer, they have book cover solutions, design solutions. So this may be a good option for a true do-it-yourselfer. And there may be other options that work better for you, but think about your goals here. Amazon has both national and international distribution channels. They have a pretty robust sales dashboard, so you can get in there and manage a lot of this yourself. Some of it is like, woo, over the top of most heads that don't do this for a living, but there is many options with KDP, and I think they're definitely worth looking into. Again, super user-friendly, very easy to use. They make it accessible for pretty much everyone. And because they're owned by Amazon, they are going to have a pretty far reach. However, there are some costs involved, and they don't allow, as far as I know currently, they don't allow hard covers. They do the soft covers, but they don't allow hard covers. So that is KDP, that's Kindle, Amazon. Another option you should look into, if this is where you're heading, is Ingram Spark. I've had many clients use Ingram Spark, and they have had great success. They are going to be similar, but there is a higher learning curve. I personally use both KDP and Ingram Spark, and Ingram Spark is definitely not as friendly. It's not horribly challenging, but it does take a little bit of clicking, a little bit figuring out. I found Ingram Spark to be a little more finicky and particular about some of the formatting features. So you may get your book kicked, and you may have to go reformat some certain things, and so it can be a little bit more of it feels like a hassle almost, but it truly isn't a bad experience in general. It's just not as user-friendly as KDP. They also offer some, international distribution, and they really, are widely accepted, are widely, in a lot of locations and all of that. So there's some huge opportunity there. And, there's going to be some fees as well, but in comparison, they may be quite similar. They may not have as many, fees attached to all of the things that they offer, but you have to kind of look into what you're looking for before I can give you the fee solution there. Okay, so we talked about KDP, we talked about Ingram. A couple other names that you should look into are BookBaby. Again, very easy to use, but they, might be a little bit more expensive. They don't have as far of a reach for distribution. Blurb is another pod service that offers options for self-publishing authors, and again, they're pretty easy to use. They're probably not as user-friendly as KDP, but they typically are for more, I would say probably nonfiction, standard nonfiction, because it's more, they offer more design elements and all of that. So one thing to keep in mind about Blurb and possibly some other POD services is that this one in particular, you cannot distribute through Amazon because Amazon has its own channels. Ingram has its own channels. Sometimes you can feed into them. So this is where it counts to understand what you want to accomplish with your book. There are some other names, and I want you to do some research on this so you can understand who will meet your needs. But I also want you to take in consideration the royalties, meaning what you are going to get paid on your book, because what you're doing is paying to print the book, but some of that is kind of built into the distribution of your book. If you are simply trying to print your book and you just want it to land at your doorstep and you're going to deal with distribution, great. But if you want to utilize the distribution channels of these POD offers, services, then you want to understand what that costs, kind of the middleman fee, if you will. You're going to write it, you're going to give it to them to print, but they're also going to kind of handle it for you. So instead of you handling it all on your own, you're essentially paying them to help you get this book out there, right? So in the grand scheme of things, it sort of goes like this. Amazon and like everyone else, non-Amazon retailers such as like Barnes and Noble and all of that, or Amazon. That's it. So Amazon and like Ingram Spark is over there, Amazon and like everyone else, kind of physical bookstores, like everything else but Amazon. So you're going to want to look into the royalties that apply to each distribution channel. We're going to talk more about book distribution and all of that in other videos, but definitely if you want to get into a non-Amazon retailer, consider that as part of your goal, and assume that you're going to need to find a non-Amazon retailer. So if you want to get your book in bookstores, you're going to have to figure out how to do that, right? So the distribution is a bigger topic we'll talk about, but I wanted you to start thinking about this when determining where to print and why some of these print options are going to be a better fit for you. So we will continue this discussion in other videos and talk about, really where to print if you want to get bookstore, pick up and all of that. So we will continue the discussion, I promise. Please come back for more, okay?